Bordertown had been fairly peaceful over the week. According to Iron Axe and Brian, the strength and the number of demonic beasts would gradually increase as the months of demons continued. Taking advantage of the current defensive pressure, Roland sent a sloop loaded with ores to Willowtown. Due to the use of the steam engine, the number of workers in the North Slope mine had been reduced by half, while the output increased steadily, allowing it to the level it had been at before it collapsed. The use of machines greatly lowered the manpower required. Meanwhile, Roland carried on a preliminary reform of the mining system, turning the fixed compensation into a floating salary. He set a daily average output tallied by Beriv as a standard, and going above by a certain amount would end in additional remuneration. In addition, anyone who found gemstones or mineral veins could claim extra rewards. This measure effectively promoted the workers' enthusiasm, and lively scenes could be seen everywhere in mining areas. Roland naturally would like to do something now that the ore was in his hands. Besides the steam engine, he also planned to manufacture a series of machine tools. Machine tools had a long history, and generally speaking, they were tools used to produce other tools. So an anvil, which was manually fixed and forged, could be regarded as the most original machine tool. Making tools by hand was not all that bad, however, the issue lay in the ungainly positioning of the tools. Thus, people added clip or groove on the tool stand to fix the parts that were processed. The early harquebus and flintlock were both handmade on anvils with grooves. As time went on, merely depending on manpower could not meet the demand of processing, and then the machine tools evolved and expanded. The machine tool applied different fixed methods and toolings according to different usages. In addition, the linkage of handwork and machinery could effectively improve the efficiency of process. Roland considered making the manual milling machine. Although the milling machine had versatile functions, he would simply use it to produce involute gears, and its frame could be simplified. All it needed was a pair of card slots and a rotatable steel mill. With the help of a specific molding mill specialized in cutting gears could be easily produced. The top of grinding tool was polished into the shape of a trapezoid and was heated to a hot red state. Then marks were drawn with iron bars, followed by a quench hardening treatment in water. That was how a customized mill was produced. After solving the key problem, Roland immediately called Carter to hire 2 carpenters to forge the milling machine base, while Anna continued to make other metal parts in the castle backyard. There was no doubt that metal processing had become as easy as making pottery with the help of Anne, especially after she grew skilled in controlling her flames. The initial production of small parts all depended on her. Seeing her melting iron ingots into a fluid iron liquid and kneading it, Roland marveled unceasingly. Without the witches, it would have taken over 10 years to achieve what he had imagined. 2 days later, the first simplified milling machine was placed in the backyard. Recently, Roland had been busy designing a set of gears, which would be used to regulate the speed and stabilize the output of the steam engine. The relevant fluted discs were in the molding process. Once the milling machine was finished being assembled, the process of gear milling would be carried out. Gears were nothing new for Chief Knight Carter. The drainage of water in most of the mines in the world was achieved by livestock pulling wooden gears with a winch mechanism. Carter was satisfied this time. He was able to understand what the prince was doing. Roland told him to bring 3 blacksmiths and their apprentices to learn how to operate the milling machine in the backyard. It was unlikely that Roland was going to operate these machine tools, so he had to train some skillful workers. After their respectfully saluting, Roland started to demonstrate how to use the milling machines to produce gears. Roland did not mind serving as the demonstrator at all. Actually, he just would seem like a type of prince that had various hobbies. Besides, being considered as half-assed, it was easy for him to operate the machine tools. Carter was responsible for pouring warm lard on the side. In that era, it was a waste to replace oil lubrication by lard. However, something was better than nothing. The lard fell down into a ceramic bowl after soaking the mill, and it could be used repeatedly. Roland firstly carved an indentation on the fluted disc according to the designed angle. Then he set the fluted disc upright and fixed it on the working table. Next, he pulled the mill above the fluted disc, aiming at the inscribed line, then pressing the pedal. The belts transferred the power generated by pedals' wooden wheels to the mill shaft. Later on, Roland held fast to the mill handle and pulled down slightly, and then the rotating mill cut the fluted disc slowly at an angle of 90 degrees. As the material of the fluted discs was pig iron, it was not hard to carve the indentation, despite the fact that the mill was working the rolled steel after the quenching process. The air was thick with the fragrance of lard, causing the blacksmiths and apprentices who did not eat meat for a long time to swallow their saliva. After the demonstration, it was time to sign the contract. The business in Bordertown had just begun, and the industry was even more recent. Therefore, neither steam engines nor machine tools would get popular immediately. At this time, the majority of people could hardly understand the huge power those things represent or their potential. As a result, Roland had to promote the machines by himself. The contract said that the smithy using milling machines had to process one set of gears every week. All the needed materials should be provided by the castle, and the processing fee was 10 silver oils. Besides, the machine tools were not free, and the process functioned more like renting. The smithy had to pay 2 silver oils to use the tools. During the months of demons, the business in the smithy was not as prosperous as before. It was an order from the prince, and it could also benefit the smithy. Thus, nobody went against this order. At the same time, Roland told them that it was the first milling machine, and there would be more milling machines being produced constantly. Anyone who was interested could apply at the city hall. "Your Highness, why don't you directly make the processing fee 8 silver oils?" Carter asked, confused, after the blacksmiths went away. "The amount is the same, but the meanings are different," Roland explained. "This is probably the first commercial lease contract in Bordertown. I need to set an industry standard." Carter wiped his forehead, knowing that His Highness was talking nonsense. He had experienced this situation. The prince would carry on talking if he pretended to listen carefully. A good start can lead to a virtuous cycle. At present, only I need to buy gears, so I provide machine tools. They get rewarded for their labor. Later, when others also need them, the blacksmiths will realize that they can get more commissions from buying the machine tools than renting them. Roland paused. Thus, whenever they confront new things, they would consider applying the method of alternative production to avoid the risks. I can get rewards by renting the tools out, and the subsequent development of new things will be decided by the market. That's a virtuous cycle.